Good morning, beautiful wives. We are here again with another Respect There from our Respect There 40 days to a deeper connection with God and our husband. So today we are on there number 34. We are almost getting to the end of our 40-day there. So today's there is called a safe place. And the verses are Ephesians 4:31 and 32. Get rid of all bitterness, rage, and anger, brawling and slander, along with every form of malice. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other, just as Christ forgave you. So, in this, she shares the story about a woman whose husband came home and went straight into his chair with his newspaper. He usually would come home and say hi to her and whatever, and he didn't do that this time. So she talks about how this woman came in and to greet her husband, right? And she asked him, is everything okay? And he stared at her blankly for a minute before he responded. And it says here that later she found out that that moment that he stayed quiet and stared at her lasted so long because he was afraid of her reaction. It says here his experiences in letting her know his frustration in the past frequently ended up badly. She took things personally, even though they had nothing to do with her. So he sat there and he looked at her, debating whether or not to open and confide in his wife. And I think that if I'm being honest, that has probably been the case with my husband more times than I would like to admit, because I have been very critical in the past. I have been very quick to offer advice in the past that were not solicited, right? And I have been very quick to point out to him things that I think he could improve in the area where he's struggling so that he won't struggle anymore, right? Because in my mind, it was obvious, like, if you're struggling with A and B and I'm seeing what the issue is, let me offer you solutions, right? But more times than not, it comes out as condescending, it comes out as criticism, it comes out as contempt, it comes out as disrespect. So, it 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 led him to this place where he was constantly building a wall, to protect himself from my contempt, from my disrespect, from my criticism, right? When in reality, all I wanted to do was help him. So the point is that this woman in today's devotional didn't criticize, didn't do anything, she just responded with, wow, I'm so sorry, I didn't know things were that bad. And then it says, gone were the insinuations of his lack of managerial skills, and this time there was no cutting remarks about his ineptness at dealing with people. Her tone was kind, gentle, and compassionate. So he went ahead and he took a risk and he poured out his heart and he shared his emotions, and he found complete relief that he was able to do that, and somewhere along the lines, the burden that he had felt was lifted, because just like anybody else, our husbands, they need to have that place where they can be just sincere, and vulnerable and pour out their hearts, and husbands will not do that with a lot of people other than their wives. We may find friends to do that with, right? But our husbands most likely will not. Our husbands most likely depend on us for that, because that's how they're built. So it's important that we're able to be there for them without the criticism, without the contempt, without the disrespect, just a listening ear, right? And I say that with 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 a lot of fear of God in my heart, because that has not been my position way too many times in the past. So she says here that her entire goal for that day was to not be critical, to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. While she now had some concerns about their financial situation, she realized that her husband was fully capable of dealing with it. And if he needed help, then he would ask, right? So the bottom line, be a safe place for your man to fall. When the entire world seems like it's out to get him, he can come running back to you. I love that. And so today's there, we have a few questions here. And one of them is, if you're feeling brave, ask your husband if you are a safe place for him to pour out his emotions. And I really love that question, because unless our husbands are afraid to answer us, they will answer us sincerely, right? And this is something that my husband and I are continually improving on. This year has been, I believe, the year where we've had the most growth in our entire time of being together. In the 16 years that we've been together, this year 2025 has been the year where we've had the most growth in our emotional intimacy. And we are now, at the end of the year, approaching December already in 2025. And we began this journey in January, really. Well, we began it before, right? But the intensity and intentionality of it began this year. And so, it really has been a year of so much growth for us in this area of emotional intimacy, and of both of us learning. I used to always blame him for not being emotionally available and not being able to express his emotion, but in reality is I wasn't very welcoming to it. I was very aggressive in the way that I spoke, in the way that I responded, in the way that I reacted, and that shut him down. And I was not a safe place for him to come. I was not a safe place for him to vent and to just pour out his heart, because number one, I couldn't understand it. Like, I couldn't understand why he was struggling with such things that were so obvious to me, right? And I couldn't relate in a way that was helpful, because the truth is that I was not welcoming, to his emotional vulnerability. And I was not welcoming to what he had to share, because he shares it in a different way than I would, and for whatever other reason, But the truth is that this has been a year of growth for both of us, because he has realized that he is an emotional being and that he is able to learn to express his emotions in a way that it's going to give justice to his emotions, right? And I have been learning to be welcoming to that. I have been learning to be welcoming to the fact that he expresses it very differently, and that's perfectly fine. I have been learning to be open to whatever he has to say, and not jump into conclusions, and not jump into trying to help, and not jumping into trying to find solutions and fixing his problems that he doesn't want me to fix, right? So it really has been a year of amazing growth for us in this area. And I can tell you that what helped me the most was really what the challenge is at the end of this there. It take a piece of paper, put a line in the middle, and draw a line in the middle, and in one side make it his side, the other side make it your side. Make a list of all the things that annoy you, frustrate you about him, in the way that he expresses emotions and how you react to it, detach that one side from the next. Burn his side and just look at your side. Spend some time with God on your side, asking God, how do I take responsibility for this? Because his side is not my responsibility, right? How he acts and the things that he does to that annoy me are not my responsibility, right? My side is my responsibility. Dealing with my own emotions and how I respond to him is my responsibility. His side is not, And in reality, I can tell you that has been the one thing that has helped me the most throughout this very intense journey of growth in emotional intimacy. It's taking responsibility for my response. The only time, and I'm not sure I mentioned this here with you girls before or not, but the only time that Bible tells us to love our husbands is not an unconditional love, is not a sexual love, is a friendship love. Why? Because we have a tendency to not love them fully with that friendship love. We love them unconditionally. We love them in so many ways. But when it comes to friendship, that shoulder to shoulder, just sitting there and being quiet and allowing them to speak, we have a hard time doing that. We have a hard time. Well, let me speak for myself. I have a hard time being quiet, and just sitting there next to him and listening or spending time, right? Whenever he needs. So anyways, that to me has been the one thing that has helped me the most, is taking responsibility for what I can change, for what I am responsible for, and just allowing him to be, right? Like whatever it is about him that would frustrate me, that would annoy me, whatever, I can't change that, and that's not my responsibility. But how I respond to him in love and in respect is my responsibility as a wife. And it's not my responsibility just to him, it is my responsibility to God, So anyways, I encourage you to really take the time to complete the dare for today, and share with me in our WhatsApp group. Share with me privately if you want. Write some comments here on the video. Yeah, please and thank you. And I will see you tomorrow. I love you. The link for the WhatsApp group is here on the video. And I can't wait to see you there and to see your comments there. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.